Soma, the moon god, had a son called Budh, and Budh had a son called Pururavas. Pururavas was the first and the greatest king of the Luna dynasty, the Chandravamsham. They say that he ruled over the entire world, but there was one woman who ruled over his heart. Once upon a time, high up in the heavens, there was a palace, a grand palace. It was the palace of the king of the gods, Indra. Indra was a purveyor of all things fine. His court resounded with the singing of the Gandharvas and the dancing of the celestial nymphs, the Apsaras, one more beautiful than the other. Rambha, Tilottama, Menaka. But there was one who was the absolute finest, Urvashi. Urvashi was a gift to Indra from the sages Naranarayana. She was the finest dancer, the most gorgeous woman ever. She was also the mistress of seduction. She, Urvashi, with her long black hair, doe-like eyes, slender waist, generous hips. There's not a single mortal or immortal who hasn't swooned at the sight of the swaying of her hips. And when she danced, Thay takanaka tharri kukku takataka janaka janaka takata janaka janaka takata janaka janaka takata. The court resounded with applause. Everyone stared at her, mesmerized by her magic. Now, Urvashi loved all of this adoration, but sometimes she felt that heaven lacked a bit of spice. On those occasions, she went to another place, a little escapade. Sometimes with other celestial nymphs, she came down to earth. And on one such escapade, after she had a great time on earth, she was on her way back to the heavens when she was stopped by a force, a dark force. It spoke, Urvashi, marry me. Beast, move away. And now she could feel him right here, right here. She could feel his hot breath on her neck and a foul stench. Urvashi, marry me now. Reveal yourself, you beast. And it revealed itself. It was Keshi, the Asura. He held her by a hand and dragged her, and she fought with him, but she couldn't overpower him. He lifted her easily and put her on his back, and he ran through the forest. She yelled for help right at that moment, riding a great white steed. Was Pururavas, and he heard her call for help. Help, help, help! He quickly dismounted his horse and went towards the direction of the sound, and there he fought Keshi and overpowered him and released Urvashi. But something happened in all of that struggle. He accidentally touched her. And that one single touch left her with goosebumps and a warm, fuzzy feeling in her heart. This was the first time that she was actually being touched by a mortal, and it felt beautiful, different. Pururavas, on the other hand, this was his first chance at looking at something so beautiful and Apsaras, and they were both instantly, madly in love. However, they belonged to two different worlds. Urvashi belonged to the heavens, and Pururavas to the earth, and so they parted. But Pururavas couldn't stop thinking about Urvashi, and Urvashi, she thought about Pururavas all the time. She didn't eat, she couldn't sleep, her dance was not the same. She was completely smitten by this handsome king from the earth. Pururavas, he was so distracted too. This was his first love, and he couldn't think, and he couldn't engage in his kingly duties. He was being distracted. He was constantly chanting her name through the day. First love. And one day, Urvashi, distracted as she was, went into a rehearsal. The great sage Bharata had written a play, and she was a lead actress in the play. And she went in there, and her line was, "Oh, Purushottama." But so distracted she was that she said, "Oh, Pururavas." The sage lost his temper and cursed her, because that's what sages do. And he said, "May you live on earth as a mortal and give birth to mortal children." The other nymphs were horrified, but Urvashi was delighted, because this means that she could be united with her lover. Indra, however, was not very happy with what was going on. So he negotiated with the sage, and they found a solution, a midway solution. She could go down to earth, provided she kept two conditions. And that is how Urvashi came down to the earth, and she met her love Pururavas, and she spoke to him and put forward two conditions. "You will have to take care of my pet sheep." Sheep, he thought. Well, all of this world comes under my protection. Your sheep, easy. "My second condition is that we shall never see each other naked, apart from when we're making love." That was easy too. And thus the two of them started a very happy married life, and they lived together for 64 years. Now you might think 64 is a very, very long time, but back in the day, 64 was hardly a honeymoon period. At the end of their 64th year, the king of the gods, Indra, started to really miss Urvashi. His court was not the same, it didn't have the same sparkle. Rambha Tilotama Menaka, oh God, no. I want Urvashi back. And thus he schemed, and one night he sent a Gandharva from the heaven to steal Urvashi's sheep. Bah, bah, bah. Urvashi woke up with a start, and she knew that someone was stealing her sheep. She woke up. Pururavas, wake up! Someone's stealing my sheep. Ooh. He woke up with a start, and he ran through the night, except he forgot that he wasn't wearing anything. Too late. Right at that time, Indra, the king of the gods, who is also the god of rain, thunder, and lightning, he flashed a bright stroke. And in the dark, Urvashi saw her husband stark naked. And thus, both her conditions were not met. This meant one thing, that they could never be with each other from this night on. Purravas tried his best to convince her to stay, that he could fix this. But Urvashi silently cried because she knew that there was nothing that they could do. Purravas begged and pleaded with her. When he knew nothing could be done, he fell to the ground and he started to weep. His tears became a puddle, and in the puddle he saw Urvashi, a reflection of her. He reached out to touch her, but she just disappeared in the ripples, gone forever. But Urvashi was with child when she went back to heaven. 9 months later, she returned to the earth, and they met at Kurukshetra, where she handed him their firstborn, Ayu, and went back to the heavens. But she did come back to the earth many, many, many times later, giving him many more sons. But the two lovers were never completely reunited again. The earth and the heaven, longing for each other forever.